welcome to the final day of our social media takeover. This week we've been thinking all about mindfulness, so today I thought I'd come to the park. We're going to take a walk around the woods, and as we go, we're going to think of things we could use to tell a story. Telling stories is a great way to relax. Let's go. All you need is a stick, some string, or some masking tape. I've just got to the edge of the woods, so I'm going to start to find some things that might be interesting for a story. Walk with me. I've just found something exciting. Let's add it to our stick. This will be our first item. Watch how we do it. I've tied on my first bit of string and I'm ready to add my first item. Our story can begin now. Look at what I've found. These are fantastic, but they're not for our story. These have been left here for a purpose. This looks like it'll be a fantastic addition. Just found a great bit of bark. I'm going to put this on using a piece of masking tape. Right, let's go. These look like they'll be great additions. So relaxing walking around here. My stick is complete. I wonder what story we could tell with it. I've just thought of the best person to tell our story. I wonder if you can guess who it is. I'm just going to leave this here and see who finds it.
What's this? It looks to me like a story stick. I love making up stories. You know, this gives me an idea. I bet if you were to look at the right time of year, you could find a couple of fairies living in this. You know, the ones that paint the leaves red in autumn. In fact, Mr. and Mrs. Fairy were sat at home in their pine cone at dinner time, and Mr. Fairy came out of his kitchen and gave Mrs. Fairy bark for dinner again. Bark for dinner again, she said. Bark, 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 bark. That's all I ever eat. Breakfast, lunch and dinner. Haven't you got anything different? So Mr. Fairy scratched his head, had a think and thought, you know, I could put some fern in to spice it up a little bit. Fern? Said Mrs. Fairy. I don't like fern. Not even sheep will eat fern. Well then, there's nothing to do. I know. Mrs. Fairy had a brilliant idea suddenly. Let's go out and see what else we can find to eat. So they went out and they walked for miles and miles. And by the time they found somewhere, it was 3 days later at breakfast time. And they came across Farmer George's farm. Now, Farmer George grows wheat for making bread and cake and Yorkshire puddings. And he has loads and loads of wheat ready to make into flour. And so Mr. and Mrs. Fairy went up to Farmer, George, and said, can we buy some of your wheat? We'd like to make some cakes, please. Farmer George stroked his chin and said, oh, I'm sorry, fairy folk. I can't sell any wheat to you guys. I've got to sell it all to Tesco's. I'm in a really bad contract that I can't get out of, and they bought the lot. Oh, said Mr. Fairy. Oh, said Mrs. Fairy. Well, what can we do? Farmer George had an idea. He said, why don't you look over there and go and look in that there jungle? So off they went. Mr. and Mrs. Fairy wandered off to the jungle. By this time, they were miles and miles away from their pinecone home. And they wandered in the jungle with all the big leaves, waded through, finding it. And what did they find? fruit. Piles and piles of fresh, ripe fruit. So they were in seventh heaven. Apples for breakfast, oranges for lunch, bananas for dinner, coconut the next day. They loved it. Something different every night. So they moved in to a coconut, an old empty coconut, on a white sandy beach. They lived happily ever after. Except, little did they know that hiding just round the corner was an evil spiky leaf that had different plans for their new home. He was going to hide in their beds and prickle their backs when they were trying to sleep. Said the evil leaf. So, Mr. and Mrs. Fairy will have to go on another adventure. I wonder if I'll find another stick to make that one up. Bye.